event run by the Young British Chamber. We represent sort of the young professional contingent. Before I get started, I just wanted to say that if this event and the networking and the discussion that happens sort of whets your appetite and you're not yet a member of the British Chamber of Commerce, please afterwards go and find a member who works there. There's plenty of representatives around. I think Deborah's around and other members over there. Yeah. So please go and have chats, and they can tell you more about it. Obviously, there's the website as well, britishchamber.com. So to start off, first and foremost, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists, made up of experienced HR leaders. So we have Sue Olivier, who's the Regional Director for Talent Development for Building Marina. We have Maria Olvera, I'm sure there's parts of your name I forgot there, I'm sorry. Senior HR Manager for Redmark. And we have Trisha Duran, who's the HR Director for Unilever. And of course our moderator this evening is Hugo Walkinshaw. I think you've done this for us previously for panel debates. He's a partner at Ernst & Young, and of course I'd like to thank Ernst & Young as well because they're sponsoring this event tonight. So as you're all aware, the topic for discussion is talent engagement for the next generation. And this encompasses looking at attracting and retaining young professional talent in the workplace, how things have changed between different generations, and what changes we may need to occur in the future for new generations to come. To me, it seems like we are constantly hearing about the changing expectations of the millennial generation in regards to work, employers, career paths. And in response, companies are exploring various methods to attract young professional talent and cultivate them within the workplace. Examples include remote working, flexi hours, creating a productive and stimulating working environment, like the one we're in now. Hot desking zones, quiet zones, collaboration spaces, until you know you've made it as a company because you appear on the top 20 list of cool places to work on BuzzFeed. And all these ideas have their pros and cons, but reveal that companies are clearly looking like they need to evolve. And if each generation changes their priorities and values, how do companies keep up and stay interesting and relevant to their staff? Alternatively, maybe there's a lot of media overhype and people haven't fundamentally changed. As a member of Generation Y, who sits in the Young British Chamber and works in recruitment, I can definitely say that both from a professional and personal capacity, I am really interested and intrigued to hear what these panelists have to say on the topic tonight. And so, without further ado, please start with Hugo.
Very good, thank you. I've taken some inside advice and I'm going to use a microphone because apparently this room is quite big and it's quite difficult to maintain Gemma's volume. I'm sure it's not the first time someone's told you that. And also, because if I look rubbish, it's because I'm feeling rubbish. Because I've been in bed with flu for the last 4 days, and this is the first time I've been out of bed, so I am feeling a bit hot and flushed, and I have lost my voice. So bear with me. I think I've got enough energy to get through the evening. We had a look at the list of questions. We talked about the structure of the evening. We figured this is probably more about you than it is about us. So we're going to start off, and each of us is just going to introduce ourselves and our organisation and the role we play in the organisation. We're then going to talk a little bit about the kind of the strength, if you will, around our view on talent. So what is it that we think we do well, and probably what is our biggest challenge. So I'm going to start that process, and we're just going to work through the panel, and hopefully that will give you a bit of a sense about what our organisations are doing and what are some of the challenges that we're seeing. And then we'd like to turn it over to you guys for questions. If you're happy standing up and shouting questions, that's absolutely fine. If you'd like to use a microphone, you can come and borrow one of ours. But we're going to keep it fairly relaxed, and at some point we'll break into networking, and if you want to save your questions for one-on-one, that's fine too. Okay, so other than that, the only other ground rule is if you want to make a phone call, please do so quietly and take it outside. I have a pet peeve, which is my old-fashioned bias about phones going off. Other than that, all good. Okay, so probably I'll start and sort of set the tone for the guys. So, as you know, my name's Hugo Walkinshaw. I've been in consulting pretty much all my career, so I joined as a fresh grad from university. I started off with Deloitte in London. I moved to Singapore about 20 years ago. So I've been in consulting 25 years. I've been in Singapore for the last 20 years. I had not a midlife crisis, but I had a moment last year, both health-wise and career-wise, where I decided I needed to do something different. So I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. Those of you that don't know, that's the snoring problem that keeps you awake at night. So if you snore and you wake yourself up and you never actually sleep, you get fatigued and it kind of takes you down a bad path. So I was lucky enough to get diagnosed and then have some surgery last June, which sorted me out. And at the same time, I decided to have a career change. So I stepped out of Deloitte and I moved across to EY. The reason I mentioned this is because one of the reasons I moved was to do with the branding and the kind of view of talent that they had. So I had 6 months off, which I've never done before. I started with EY in January, so I'm relatively new to EY. I've had a year there now. I think in terms of talent and what EY does, which is, and I'm saying this kind of not just comparing against Deloitte, but also comparing against all the clients I've worked with, because one of my responsibilities was to run our human capital practice. So I've been in HR consulting for the last 12 years. The kind of the employer branding and the employer message that EY has is very different to anything in my industry, in the Big Four and in the big sort of consulting and accounting firms. I was joking with the guys earlier, most of the Big Four and the big firms have had these taglines forever, which are always in blue, and they always say something to do with profit, growth, revenue, solutions, business. It's a very kind of logical, factual, business-driven tagline. EY has a very different tagline. It's called Building a Better Working World. And it's, when you first see it, you kind of think, huh, what does that actually mean? And when I joined the firm, I asked a few people. I was very attracted to it because it seemed to be about something other than just work. It seemed to be about how do you make a difference. And I thought maybe that was just my age and I'm at the point where I'm being a bit altruistic and I want to put something back in. But I realised that for everybody, for the senior people, for the young people, for the client-facing professionals, for the support staff, building a better working world meant something different to everybody. It was all good, and it all kind of gets us aligned around not just the work aspect of being at work, but actually about the kind of the making a difference aspect of being at work. And I think sometimes that gets lost. So for some people, building a better working world is about developing youth and talent. For some people, it's about diversity in the workplace. For others, it's about nation building. You know, I go and see our guys in Vietnam and Indonesia. It's very much about making a difference to the country and how you help make change happen. So I found that incredibly motivating, and the more time I've spent in the firm, the more I've seen people be motivated by exactly that. So I think that's a big part of kind of the EY. I won't say talent management, but just branding and talent attraction. With that come a whole bunch of programs, and again, the difference I've seen with EY has been the commitment and the execution of programs around workplace of the future. So yes, we've skinnied down our offices and taken the offices away, and there's lots of hot desking, but they've made a real effort to make sure that people can work from home. I've been in some places where you reduce all the office space, but you still expect everyone to turn up at 8:30 the next morning, and you know somebody's checking the door for entry. So some real maturity around relaxing the policies about where you work and how you work at every level in the organisation. And again, that's quite different in certainly the partnership model that I come in. You know, there's a rule for the senior people, and there's a rule for everybody else. And this is a place where the rules apply to everybody else as well. So I found that, again, very motivating. There's a huge focus on corporate social responsibility. Today, if any of you in the business district around 4:30, you would have seen a whole bunch of people in yellow EY shirts walking aimlessly around Marina Bay. So they do that, that was organised by the team, they do that once every 6 months, and today we had 1,300 people walking around Marina Bay, and every circuit we did in Marina Bay, we were donating a bowl of rice to Singapore's needy families. So apparently today we donated 70,000 bowls of rice to Singaporean families. Again, just a simple thing, but just something that you don't often see companies doing. And people are very proud to be involved. We invited families, we invited clients, we invited friends, and again, you just made a real difference to people. So I've really enjoyed the programs, the kind of the working environment, the workplace, but most of all this brand around building a better working world. In terms of the challenge we have, I'm not sure this is specific to EY, but probably the biggest sobering point for me was, again, talking to a group like this, but a group within EY. We were talking about career paths and talking about how hard it is in our organisation, particularly in consulting, where I said, how do you motivate people and how do you retain people? And there was still certainly a bias on my part that people would want to join and kind of do what I've done, which is to stay in the same career and move through the same organisation. And I was frankly kind of quite shocked about how few people think that's a good thing to do. And that probably the average tenure was expected to be about 3 years. And people were happy to do 3 years and move on, and happy to become a client, happy to become a supplier, happy to come back. You know, so people were pretty flexible, and they kind of expected the firm to be flexible. And I think there's still a lot of people at leadership levels that aren't quite ready for that. They're still looking for that long-term loyalty, you know, staying with us long-term is the right thing to do. And if you step out, there's always that slight sense that you've sort of maybe betrayed somebody or you've let somebody down. There's still a few people in leadership who have that view. And I kind of asked why. I sort of, why do people want to move on? And slightly challenging my own value set. And most of the people responded by saying that taking a role in a big corporate used to be seen to be the safe option. It was a safe bet. It was safety in terms of your development. It was safety in terms of always having a career. Safety in terms of earnings. And again, everybody in the room challenged that and said, actually not. The perception that going out on your own, becoming a freelancer, starting your own business is risky, and being in a big corporate career is not risky. Everybody at the millennial level said, no, we don't see that. And apparently being in a corporate career is now seen to be as risky as doing your own thing. And I kind of, again, that shocked me a little bit. We talked about it some more, and what was fed back to me, what I think is probably quite fair, is that there isn't the same corporate loyalty to people that there used to be. So yes, you may have your loyalty to a corporate, but given the job cuts and the redundancies that are happening, which have been particularly hard here for the last couple of years, and particularly in financial services, that loyalty isn't reciprocated. Earnings potential has changed. So variable income, bonuses, etc., that's got harder. So in terms of longevity, in terms of earning, in terms of development, in terms of actually having fun, you know, some of the roles out there now just not quite so fun, and having fun is an extremely important part of life at the moment. So it was quite interesting to hear that actually the one big thing that I felt we had going for us as an organisation, because we were a safe bet and it was about a safe place to have a career, actually 95% of the people in the room didn't believe that. So if I had to pick a challenge that I have in our business, it's how do I make sure that all our senior leadership understand that, and how do we change the way that we manage people and manage onboarding people and recruiting people and the message we give them. So we can't be going to market saying it's another job for life and don't worry, you'll be fine, because no one believes that. So how do we actually attract people? When they're with us, how do we develop them? How do we try to retain them as best we can? But how do we also recognise that moving on is okay? And actually having people that leave and come back and leave and come back is not a bad thing. So how do you take your personal bias out of that? So that's probably the biggest challenge we have. And I'm not sure this is necessarily just a millennial discussion. I think it's actually led by the millennials, and I think it's creeping back up the rest of the organisation in terms of the age group. I think a lot of people in the early days thought it was about being fickle, and now actually I think they have a great deal of respect for it. So that's my challenge. I'm now going to pass you on and see where the other challenges are.
Thank you. We are in such different worlds. I'm like, wow, you get to keep people for 3 years. That's pretty good. And Ogilvy is the largest communications company in Asia. So by a large margin, because of the way that we're structured, we're an advertising agency and a PR company and a CRM agency and a digital agency and a social media agency, etc. So everything under one roof. So in terms of our competition, we are just much larger than the competition. It's got its upsides and its downsides. Everybody you know has worked for Ogilvy, wants to work for Ogilvy, knows somebody who works for Ogilvy. And they want to work for us because we are seen as the university of advertising. We do a lot of training, We have a good reputation for training, and everybody wants training. And certainly millennials are very keen to get training. But like a university, it's sort of a place that you go to and then you leave. So our profile is quite young. A lot of people in the millennial group, and they have a short attention span, and they have lots of options, and there are so many competitors that they can go to, and they really don't feel the need that they need to stick around for a long time. So they only stay as long as it's interesting for them to do so. So we've seen the tenure for us, certainly in that group, go from 4 years to 3 years, to 2 years, to 18 months. So now, in the beginning, I took it really personally. I thought, damn it, we do all these things, and why don't they stay? If we can get them to stay longer, that's success. So if we can extend somebody's life in the company by 6 months, that's a good thing. So now, and we leave the door wide open. For those that we want back, we actively market to them to come back to us. So it's a dynamic environment. It's supposed to be the most fun business. I think we are being given a lot of competition by the tech companies. Google is very sexy. Apple is very sexy. Yahoo used to be very sexy. And that is really what we're looking at now in terms of competition for attention. Also, the industry has become a lot more complicated. We used to hire client service people, creative people, back office, media people. It's now consultants, digital architects, user experience. So many specialist roles that we need to bring into the agency. And to find people who can do the job, but two can survive in the environment is quite hard. Because it's not for everybody. It's very grey, it's very loose, it's very flaky at times, it's not very structured. So for people who are that technical, they find that environment really challenging. So our biggest challenge is to find the people who will fit with us, who will integrate well, and who we can onboard properly and can be useful to us fast, and then who will stay. Because those are the most sought after people now in the business, because that's the hardest group of people to recruit. And then how do we find training that is specifically skilled for those people so that they feel like they get some value out of the agency, but also give them the bigger communication environment of, how do I apply it to PR? How do I apply it to advertising? How do I apply it to CRM? So doing that across a whole bunch of markets, very varied, from Japan, who is very traditional and settled, to Vietnam, who's very young. Myanmar was brand new. I spent 6 months in Myanmar making them ogilvy, trying to make them ogilvy. And it's very hungry, very interesting. That's sort of a great challenge. And then, of course, how do we integrate with a greater network of the environment. So we focus a lot on big clients. We have a global business team that looks after big clients like Unilever, IBM, Allianz. So all of these teams work across the region, and so there's the matrix of the region that you're in, the business that you're on, and then the discipline that you're in, which makes our lives quite complicated and makes it slow and hard to hire because you have to get approvals from 20 people. Then we are part of the WPP network, and anything that's part of a network is going to slow it down some more. So for us, being nimble enough, getting people in fast enough, that's quite hard. So I came out of the business. I was client service in Ogilvy for many years, probably about 15 years, before I changed into talent management. I find the challenge finding other talent managers for our offices almost impossible. Unless you come out of the business and understand the business, you can't really recruit for the business, and you can't really counsel in the business. And that, I think, is a big challenge. Not everybody who's in the business wants to be in the talent side of the business. So that is really, for us, a couple of the challenges.
Very interesting, because we have a similar challenge, but in a completely different environment. So my name is Maria. I'm Senior HR Manager for Redmark. Redmark is a startup. So it's a very young company. It's very different to the companies that are represented here. The company is just 4 years old. So it was founded by two guys, 28 and 29 years old at the time, ex-INSEAD people. One American guy called Roger Egan, and one Indian guy called Vikram Rupani. Both of them have worked in the US before. Both of them came from big financial institutions. Both of them had been entrepreneurs before, but by themselves that didn't go very well. But they met in INSEAD, which is one of the best MBA schools in the world. And the key for INSEAD is to have multicultural diversity and to teach people how to work across cultures. And they also teach people how to exchange ideas and have very heated debates. But the idea is that at the end, everything is for the benefit of the project. And that's how they run the company. So Vikram and Roger started in 2011. And they just started with some angel investors from INSEAD. And then in 2013, they got their Series A, and in 2014, they got their Series B. So we're following a model of startup like Silicon Valley, and the same as Uber, I think, the same as Grab Taxi, the same as Lazada, the same as Zalora, which is this e-commerce space is very new in Singapore. So usually we have two populations because we are an online grocery store. Right? So we have our population in the professional one, which is completely different to the warehouse people, because we have a huge warehouse and a distribution center where we fulfill our orders from. So I'm going to focus in the professional population now, which is what I think you guys are all interested. Redmar has grown slowly. The guys had to work, really they had some jobs. I think some of them worked in Unilever before as well, and they were buying groceries from stores, and going to deliver them at 10 p.m., 7 p.m. So they have built the business from scratch, and they know what it takes to be successful. There's an entrepreneurial culture around the organization. So when I arrived at the organization 1 year ago in July, and we had less than 200 employees. We've grown to 650 employees only in Singapore in 1 year, so that's huge growth. In India we have now 45 people, and in Hong Kong we have 6 people. So we're planning to expand regionally, but managing groceries is not the same as managing clothes or any other thing. So you have to have a lot of quality control. You have to have a lot of different measures. So if you have order from us, that sometimes something's don't arrive, and maybe you're having a party tonight, and maybe the beers didn't arrive, and what are you gonna do? You were counting on us, right? So there's a lot of things that we're still figuring out, and the idea is our mojo is that customers are first, so we do everything in the company to get customer satisfaction. Our aspiration is to be an everything store. We want to be the Amazon of Asia, and we're doing some projects for that at the moment. Culture. People are very, very important and essential in what we do. So we have our Redmar cultural values, and you can actually find in SharePoint. And so it's all about being entrepreneurial, it's all about innovation, it's all about being creative. And one of our values is being yourself and respect others. So we're a very, very diverse group. So I myself are Mexican, so I'm the first Mexican, and we have two other more. We have people from Hungary, we have people from Russia, from Ukraine, lots of people from the US, lots of people from the UK, people from Portugal, from India, from Vietnam, from China, from Japan, from Korea. So you go into our office and everybody is very different, and I would say everybody's a little bit quirky, but everybody is a Red Martian at heart. So there's something in everybody that really unites us, and that's one of our challenges as well. How do you get that person that can fit into the business? Because it sounds amazing, right? Entrepreneurial, you do your own thing, you have your little project, and you have lots of empowerment to do things. But today you can be working on something, and next week the priority changed. So how can you find a person that is first of all going to take out the security of a big company where you get paid AWS your 3 months bonus, going to work for a startup where maybe the pay is not that great, and well, we are not IPO, so we're still growing, but on the contrary, you get to contribute enormously and you get like a real career development just by doing. So I tell you guys, 1 year of my life in there has been equivalent to 3 years of career development for me. I came from being 5 years in Rolls-Royce, and I've taught lots of people how to manage others and lots of people how to be a great boss. In this organization, I had to build my own team. I had to develop them. I had to coach them. I had to give them the space to make mistakes and to learn from them. And now the HR department can handle by itself. So that's the sort of opportunities that Radmer gives you. You need to start making decisions on the spot. You need to think a lot, be very quick, and if the priority changed from last week to this one, you just have to respond. It's very intense. It's sometimes a 24/7 job, but it's very, very rewarding. But are you willing to leave your Monday to Friday job? You go on the weekends. It's very comfortable. To take this risk and to learn. So that's our challenge. And we are mainly based in Singapore. The other challenge that we have, Gemma has been to our office, it's in Europe, in your own port, right? This is not how I dress normally. I dress like this, just to come here today, to look decent. But like the COO comes in shorts. I always come in jeans. But do you want to take this? This is very nice. There's coffees everywhere. There's Starbucks. Hawker centers. You can go to have lunch for $10 or for $4. Here, nothing. It's like in Lakeside, and then you take a shuttle bus. Yeah, but it's not. So, for that, we're trying to build like a nice office for people, because the first office that we had was really a startup. It was like maybe this side, and maybe some tables there, and you just come and work like that, right? So what we're trying to do is try to build a space that is comfortable for people. We have a lot of flexible working. There's a lot of people that work from home. Most of the people have their Macs. So say, oh my God, I'm gonna have a MacBook, awesome. Yeah, most of the people have their MacBooks the first day. Everything is very quick, everything is not bureaucratic, so you can make decisions very fast. And I think that's what Millennials and Generation Y people want. They just want to make things fast, make a difference in the organization, make a difference to, and feel that they're actually building something. I think the challenge that we will be facing moving forward is that we're growing so big that we need to put in processes. And when processes come in, bureaucracy comes in, and then 50 approvals have to come in. And people that like this entrepreneurial spirit are not going to like that at all. We've started actually to have some pushback from people that said, look, I think politics are starting to build. I think there's I don't like this anymore. I can go somewhere else that is still startup, still entrepreneurial, but and it's too far away. So I don't really like this anymore. So startup is an amazing experience, but it's not for everybody, as you were saying. It's very agile, it's very flexible. You have to be very flexible. It's hard work, but it's very rewarding.
Thank you for selling our groceries, Mark. And Ogilvy, thank you for making all our amazing ad campaigns. And ENY for calculating all our profit. I'm Trisha from Unilever, so I'm the HR director for Unilever Asia. I shouldn't really say that I'm 20 years in the company, because that also tells you my age, and it also tells you that Pond's age miracle really works. So I'm Filipina, so typical kind of Filipina that all she wants to do is kind of leave the Philippines. So I've been out of the Philippines for the last 15 years, having had a global career and a regional and a local career with Unilever. So that's kind of my story. I started in marketing, and then 2 years into the job, they kind of said to me, we want you to join HR. And even 20 years ago, I kind of thought, gosh, products and I thought I knew you. You look like one of our SVPs in skin. Anyway, sorry. No, so I, at that time, like 20 years ago and much light years younger, I thought that, you can copy products and processes and systems, but the one thing you can't copy is people. And so as cliche as it sounds, I felt, my biggest job is really not just to develop brands, but maybe to develop the Unilever brand as a whole, and to develop our people who are, in my mind, the competitive advantage of any organization. So I kind of made the move 18 years ago, and I'm still here. Now about Unilever. I think hopefully most of you know Unilever. I'm told by our CMI folks that 2 billion times a day in 190 different countries, someone somewhere is using a Unilever brand. So hopefully you are one of those 2 billion people around the world kind of knowingly or unknowingly picking up a Ben & Jerry's or a dog or what have you at home. But personally, as an HR person, or as an employee, when I think about that, that's incredible. We have 170,000 employees around the world in 190 countries. And when I think about that kind of responsibility and the impact you have in every person's home, it's huge. And so about 5 years ago, we had a new global CEO, and his name is Paul Polman, and he came with a vision. We're kind of wondering whether he wants to join the UN next and be the next, anyway, so Secretary General, but he is quite amazing and very, very inspiring. And so he joined us about 5 years ago, and he said, you know what, guys, we're gonna double our business, and of course all the maths add up when you work it backwards, right? So we're gonna double our business, but at the same time we're gonna half our environmental growth, our environmental impact, and we're going to improve our social impact. And over the last 5 years, so we were kind of thinking, so we had all sorts of stats coming around. So we were thinking about, if you think about sachets, for example, apparently you could line up all the sachets produced across the FMCG industry, and you could line it up around the earth 3 times. So that's the kind of impact an FMCG company can have to our environment. And so we had a commitment to actually half our environmental impact, even if we were doubling our growth. And so we have this huge book that tells us exactly how we're going to do it from procurement all the way till consumption with our consumers. And so it's measured regularly, and apparently we also have a direct correlation to brands that have this kind of purpose and the growth that brings to our business. Which brings me to a thought, which is around 2 challenges we've been focusing on in the last couple of years. One is, if we talk about millennials, surprisingly, I thought that at least in Asia, money was the most important thing in their hierarchy of desires in terms of most desirable company to join. But it turns out that money is it's important, but it's a hygiene factor. The most important thing is having an impact and having purpose and making a difference. And luckily that sits well with our own vision. But the second thing is just about having inspiration and having some inspiring leaders around them to learn and develop from. And what we actually did, as most companies do, is then said, okay, so if this is what millennials want to do, if this is what millennials want from their preferred employers, how is Unilever stacking up against that? And we actually found that we thought we had inspiring leaders, and we thought that we've been topping the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for the last 14 years. And we thought, of course, they know our brands have purpose and we're all about sustainability, but of course, no one knew that. So my job, I've been doing this role for the last couple of years. So one of my first jobs was to build the Unilever brand, particularly in Singapore, where no one knew us because you've got quite a small business here, and we're really proud. And just in the end, put out there what we all know internally. And so we just shared the fact that these are our brands, these are the purpose of each brand. If you use Dove, it's about making you feel beautiful every day. if it's Ben and Jerry's, there's a campaign around if it's melted, it ain't good. So it's every single brand you can pick. If you pick Lifebuoy, it's about making sure that children don't die by the age of 5 because infant mortality, the biggest cause is actually diarrhea. And by washing your hands just twice a day, you can actually limit that infant mortality. And we're working with villages to actually teach children how to wash hands. So I can basically pick any brand if it's got this kind of purpose. And so we just put it out there. I'm really proud to say that for the last couple of years, we're the #1 employer, at least in the FMCG industry, and I've seen a direct correlation with the types of students we attract and the types of people that apply, and so the quality has come from strength to strength. Now, the biggest challenge for me is that by 2020, we will be a 10 billion euro business for Southeast Asia. And that's going to be a huge proportion of Unilever. And yet, if I look at the talent coming from this part of the world, it's only 5% of the global leadership team, if I consider VPs and up. And so my biggest challenge is how do I accelerate the development of Asian talent sitting from this part of the world? Because if we're going to be that huge in Unilever, and yet we're still a Eurocentric because we are Anglo-Dutch, we're a Eurocentric company, it's not really going to sit well. From a business standpoint, I mean, already today, over 60% of our business is coming from the B&E markets. And yet, less than 5% of our leadership team come from these markets. So this is a huge business challenge for us, and my job to be done is really to figure out and kind of crack how to accelerate the development of Asian talent. So we've got 2 purposes. We've got a big Singapore office here, so it's our global headquarters. It's our second biggest headquarters for the world, and we've got a vision, as we do, and the vision is really to create global Asian leaders as well as give global leaders an Asian perspective. So if you get expatriated here, then hopefully we give you a real Asian perspective. How is it to do business here? How is it to work with people from the DME markets? And the same, so we want to also attract, develop, retain the best Asian talent and make them global. And they can do their jobs from here if they're not mobile. So that's kind of my biggest challenge. And particularly when you think about it, who knows what kind of jobs we will have available at 2020. I mean, already I kind of think we're kind of dinosaurs. So in Unilever, we kind of think that digital is a new trend, but actually, like it's been in everyone's home for ages, right? And yet, if you consider the fact that all my brand managers are spending 80% of their time creating ads rather than digital activations, this is a capability I'm fervently trying to build. I mean, something around e-commerce. You're our biggest. You're our biggest customer, so thank you. At least in this part of the world, but we don't really know how to leverage e-commerce as a business, and things like Facebook, etc. How do you even manipulate that kind of business and make it work for you? It's all obvious stuff that we do day to day, and yet as an organization, we're kind of still at infancy stages. So that's some of our challenges, and that's where Millennials can help, because for you guys, it's not all you guys, by the way, some of you don't look like Millennials. I'm just teasing. But yeah, so I mean, for you guys, for the Millennials, it's obvious, and probably you guys already have the solution that we haven't cracked, and so that's some of the insights that we need. So every year I hire about 25 management trainees, and hopefully we've got a huge management trainee scheme. And in 3 years' time, we promise to make them managers. So we hire them at around the age. In the Philippines, they're 20 years old. In Singapore, because of military service, they tend to be 22, 23. But basically, by 26, they're definitely managers of Unilever. And so hopefully, so we started this scheme at least in Singapore only 5 years ago. In Unilever globally, it's been around for about 80 years. So we're now starting to get young Asian talent in the mix and in the pipeline, and starting to come through in my talent bench. So hopefully one day we do meet the target of having a greater proportion of Southeast Asian talent and making them global leaders. at least for Unilever, if not for Unilever. They're not leaving, so I don't have such an attrition problem. I mean, they do go, some attrition is quite good. I've got about 8% attrition, but that's below market, which is around 13%. So it's not too bad, it's pretty good, so I can retain most of them. So that's a bit about Unilever, but happy to take questions a bit later on.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. That was great. So you've heard a little bit about who we are. You've heard a little bit about our organisations and what makes us proud. You've heard a little bit about what keeps us awake at night and the problems we're facing. At this point, we'll turn it over to you guys for questions, either about what we've spoken about or anything else that takes your fancy. And it's going to be Chris first.
I'm intrigued by each individual company and how you use social media, particularly LinkedIn, in terms of engaging all sorts of others, not just millennials, because this problem goes right across the board, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, a whole lot now think we've got more flexibility, more entrepreneurialism in how they can actually look at jobs. So how do each company use social media to engage talent?
Okay, I'll give you a quick one on EY. So Chris knows I'm a bit of a dinosaur and I wasn't on LinkedIn until I joined EY. But part of the induction process for me was to have a digital coach come and spend the day with me. And basically he did a download of my digital footprint and concluded I was off the grid because I had no Facebook, no LinkedIn, no Google+, I had nothing. So he said, look, it's fine, you know, I get it because you don't want to be chased by headhunters and all the usual stuff. But he said, actually, you're a moving company and it's quite a good thing to do. And what you'll find is there'll be lots of people that you know previously who are now in EY and it'll help you rebuild your network. And probably the biggest angst you have when you leave a company after 25 years is you're leaving behind your network. So I got myself on LinkedIn and it's actually a strategy for the firm. So everybody gets the same coaching. And I probably rebuilt 30% of my network in the first month. So I found it incredibly powerful internally. Not so much externally and working with clients, but very much internally, just in terms of getting my own brand out there, but also reconnecting with people around the world. And we're about 200,000 people in 200 countries, and we have a very federal structure. So it is a case of lots and lots and lots of little points and exchanges, and building that network is very powerful.
I think any company uses LinkedIn. It's sort of, thank God for LinkedIn, everybody's instantly checkable online, right? So I think we all do that. So obviously for recruitment, and that makes it easy. I think the more useful, apart from just recruiting, is we have a couple of alumni groups on LinkedIn, which is very useful, especially for us as an agency where we have lots of returnees and people want to be connected, stay connected to the brand. It is one of the things that stand out about the industry is that people want to belong to that tribe, and that tribalism never sort of goes away. So they are very happy to refer people. In China, we pay for alumni to refer because China has a much bigger retention. Actually, they don't have a bigger problem. They just work a lot harder at mitigating their problems. So they have lots of interesting strategies. And we find that a lot of ex-Ogilvy employees are very happy to recommend because they feel like ownership for the brand, and I know the type of people that you would want, and I'm happy to recommend. So in China, because it's such a complicated market, there's some payment to that. And then the other way that we use social media is Facebook pages for the different offices, and for different groups within the offices, and of course our own intranets. But the Facebook pages could be anything from a community of planners to a community of people who've been on training courses, where we create closed groups and they can share all the secrets of the training of the group, or where it's an office website, I guess, where all the madness gets posted. That's sort of mostly how we use it.
Right. Sorry, being an entrepreneurial company, the use of social media has been very entrepreneurial, being like, what is working, what is not working, and how much budget do we have. So LinkedIn is very powerful, but also to push all the messages to the right people costs a lot of money. So we know that we have to do that at some point, but we haven't done it yet. So what we started doing was having our career page, and trying to set up like the main messages. We started building the brand since last year. We started advertising our jobs there. We also just recently opened a Facebook careers page. In the beginning, it's just going to be targeting people in the warehouse because that's our main recruitment at the moment. But the idea is to start engaging more people. But the way you do it is, you need to target people. So you need to buy some. I think it's an advertisement campaign. Just target the people that you want to put those adverts in front. So at the moment we're not doing that, but that's part of our phase 3 that hopefully we will launch next year when more budget is available. All of this cost, but it's very effective. Amazon does it very well. For example, in LinkedIn, what they do is that if they want to target technology people, say, okay, I'm going to do an advertisement. I'm going to say, okay, I want to target people from this country, from this age, this certain experience, like for example of these people that you're trying to get that are very specific, so that know Scale or know Java or know this type of different languages, and they just put it in front of them. So the tool is very powerful, but you have to pay for it.
So I know you said not millennials, but for millennials, we obviously just use Facebook. We just drive traffic there. We do all our recruitment through that. LinkedIn, I think Unilever was #1 employer on LinkedIn until now, I can't remember. We do it for free. So what we do is we convert every single Unilever employee as an employer brand ambassador. So we say to everyone, we have something called LinkedIn Elevate. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but I guess we purchased that as a company. And you basically just send articles. So we've got 170,000 employees, so we just send normal, just general articles, Unilever articles to all the employees who's joined LinkedIn Elevate, and then they send out articles online on LinkedIn. So basically, you're activating the network of your employees. So just multiply 170,000 employees times their entire network, and you get all this noise online. The only thing is, of course, it's not targeted, etc. And of course, the job of the recruiters is to do that, but obviously from a targeted perspective. Incentives do help. So I do say to it's funnily enough, globally, we're quite cheap. They just say, okay, for the top 10 people who do this LinkedIn Elevate, we're going to give you an iPhone 6. So then suddenly everyone's online and kind of doing it just for an iPhone 6. Not that we can't buy one, it's just the thought of winning one that's more appealing. And then the other thing we do is we just just an employee referral scheme. So if you refer someone, and the higher the level, the more money I give you. And actually, it's worked really nicely. So I know there's a lot of headhunters in the room. So I hardly ever use headhunters these days unless it's really a strategic placement that I need to do. Most of my employees come from internal referrals, and I use Accenture to outsource my recruitment, so it comes from my recruitment team who use LinkedIn and all the job boards available. So I've saved quite a couple of million euro, I would say, in the last couple of years by doing it this way. Does that answer?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I keep turning my back on this side of the room, I'm sorry.
Well, you shared a great observation when you shared that conversation you had with millennial employees about we just want to have fun. I just was wondering from all of the panelists, what are they considering as fun and how you bring that fun to them?
Okay, so I can give you a survey-based definition, which I've bored Chris with before, so
I like the interview.
Chris can correct me. It was a reward survey, so our human capital business looking at benefits and rewards and compensation.
This is fun.
I shall keep talking through the Halloween darkness.
Sorry about that. We're very eco-friendly here, lights up.
No, we're not moving enough.
Put some more money in the machine.
So we went to market and spoke to an equal number of employees as well as HR VPs and CHROs, and we kind of got both views, mostly in the US and Europe, so less so in Asia. And we asked them to rank all the different factors around a broad definition of rewards. And the bottom line when they ranked it all is that compensation came 5th and benefits came 6th. And there were 4 other reasons ahead of that. And the way the guys characterised it was people want to wake up and go to work to do something which is fun and challenging in a place that's ergonomically friendly, alongside colleagues whose company they enjoy, and they want to be led and inspired. And if you can do all of that, they'll take fair compensation and benefits. And as soon as you screw up on any of the first 4, it's all about money. So that was, for me, quite interesting to kind of see it articulated in that way. And again, a combination of employees, also HR leaders. That is the best definition I've come across so far around what motivates people.
We did a survey as well, and almost exactly the same results. So the number one thing they look for is actually fun and friendly environment. And then I thought I was doing that when I was doing my employer brand campaigns, and then it turned out that they thought we were creative and dynamic, but not fun and friendly. So then we asked the question, what is fun and friendly? And for us, it was about that whole, and one is a big work-life balance. Having, it's very cliche, but it's very important. Having work-life balance and kind of having the whole agile working portfolio, but also having inspiring leaders to support them. That's why I say reward was really around the 5th or something, but it's practically exactly the same survey results as you guys.
I think a lot of the frustration with millennials come from people being resentful of having to manage millennials. And I think the problem is in the management of millennials. You can't really manage them. You have to inspire them. And I think they force us to be the best type of managers we could possibly be. We have to step up our game because they are very pushy, they're very demanding, they don't buy the bullshit. We have to be really, really good, and that's very frustrating. So I think for a lot of people, and they're very outspoken. So I think for me, I see that it's not for them the end game. I'm not going to put in 10 years of service to get a gold watch. I'll be so lucky. I want every day, the journey must be fun. Every day must be fun. Not fun, but inspiring, interesting. As long, and I will stick with you as long as that is the case. And as soon as that stops, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's completely true. For us, for example, we have a recreation room. So we have a gym, we have a table tennis table, ping pong. We have a football table, and in this recreation room, people can just go work there, have some drinks, have some meetings, very relaxed environment, just very similar to what you see in here. And about fun, I think it's a combination of the two things that you ladies said. It's about having the ability to laugh. Why can you laugh or joke at the office? That's having the ability to being able to be yourself, being able to be respected for who you are, being able to be listened, and value their contributions. So people stay because managers actually listen to them, and they take into account what they have to say, even if you're like a junior employee. What you're saying counts. If we're creating a campaign for interns, hey, you're 23. What would you say to people to come and work for us as interns? It's not me that I'm more than Gen X and Gen Y. It's you. So I value, and I think that you're an expert, and this is a contribution that you're doing. So the other thing that we do, especially for technology people, is that they can come to the office at 10, 11, 12, but they have been working until 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. Or they can be working from home and just chatting by Slack or by Skype or by Google Hangouts. So we use a lot of this technology, and we have Facebook open, so people have their own Slack channels chatting like technology geeks, and they do all these funny things in the office, right? So, and it's just having the time as well to do it. So we work hard, but we play hard as well.
I'm just going to lean left quickly and see if there's anyone dying to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm just running my way through the non-millennials in the middle. Go on, go for it.
Hi, I'm Graham. I work for the council. Here in Singapore, in a regional role, so we're about 14 countries. It's a very big region for us. And I've only been here about curious really about talking about millennials and Gen X, Y, Z, in the future, how, your kind of values and philosophy about, you're talking about how to kind of manage or not managed, what are your guidance and philosophy towards millennials, and how does that influence the talent strategy? Is it different, or very differentiated, perhaps for, you sort of read about how you choose careers and things are different. So I'm just curious for country or regional management if that has an influence on how you tackle these things.
We don't all have to answer every question, by the way, so if somebody's got a strong point of view, pardon.
I don't really, like I can share what we do. I don't think we've got the perfect answer, but first of all, in as much as you want to attract and we value the millennials, you've got to be true as well to what's important for you as an organization, right? So what we do from day one is we give them a real job that stretches them. And what we then do is I pick very, very carefully who their line manager or who their director or their mentor will be for the next 3 years, such that they feel a sense of accomplishment as well as progression and development over the next 3 years. And that's kind of the simple formula. So over a 3-year period, I map out a roadmap for them. I discuss it with them. I was advised by one of our consultants, millennial consultants, that we should act like their parents as opposed to acting like their managers, apparently. So whatever that means. So basically, they're not opposed to being told what to do. And if you give them enough of a stretch and they feel a sense of accomplishment and they feel rewarded post that, then they will step up and deliver. And similarly, if they don't deliver, I've got an up and out policy. So I'm giving you this, I'm paying you a bit of a premium, particularly if you're a management trainee. I'm giving you the best coach that I've got around the business, and you've got to deliver, and every 6 months I'm going to assess you. And if you're not doing well, then you're out of the program. So it goes both ways. So I put out that they've got to as well. And somehow, so I don't have much attrition at all in the management trainee scheme. So maybe one person leaves every couple of years or something like this. So it seems to work. I don't know. This is just what we do, but it seems to work.
I think I would follow what Sue was saying. Like what it has worked for me, it's connecting personally. I don't manage the team and say, do this, do this, do this, do this. No, it's just about having one-to-one conversations and say, okay, how are you doing? How's everything? So are you having any issues? Oh, I have a question about this. Okay, so let's go through it. If they're having a mistake, sometimes it's like, oh, why do you do this? Why do you do that? It's more about asking, tell me what happened. Why was the rationale behind it? And sometimes it's not a mistake that they wanted to make. It's just like a process of learning. So the best way that people are taught now in universities of learning is learning by doing. And they are being taught also about competencies. So if we create a space that is safe for them to communicate what they want to communicate, in their own language, because the way a 23-year-old perceives the world as a recent grad is very different to a 28-year-old that has, maybe working experience of 5-6 years, and a 35-year-old and a 45-year-old is completely different. A lot of us have been through organizations that are very big, where there are a lot of politics, where we have to behave in a certain way because that's the politically correct. Most of us are dressed like nicely because that's what the office and big organizations are asking from us. People that are coming out from universities now, they just want to be themselves. They want to express themselves. They want to be heard. So we need to give them the space to do that and for them to feel safe to be who they are and just guide them. If you said, okay, these are the boundaries. These are your priorities. This is the end result. go and do it. And if you have questions, come back to me. And once in a while, how are you doing? How are the results going? But it's not about like, you have to do this and this and this, and you have to do A, B, C, D, because this is the best process together. So they are more creative, they're using more the right side of the brain than the left one. So I think Generation X is more about just be the numbers, just you have to behave, you have to do this, and if you stay 20 years in an organization, that would be amazing. No, it's just like, if I don't have this, and a lot of Gen Y millennials is, I want a purpose. I want to be in this organization because I'm helping these people in this village. I'm helping to do a better world. I'm contributing. If you're not giving people a sense of purpose, a sense of what they're doing is important, they're going to leave you.
I think I would just say I certainly don't think anyone in my organisation has got a plan around this, so not everyone's learning. But the things that I am now conscious I need to do differently as a leader, I don't go to work anymore. I go to work to talk to people. So I get no work done in the office ever. I turn up and I expect to have people coming in and out of my room all day. In fact, I don't go in my room anymore. I just walk around the floor. So if I want to get something done, do it at home. I think people expect a high-touch environment, which means you have to have small teams and flat structures. That's great for a short period of time, but it's difficult to sustain for a long career. So again, I haven't worked that one out, but just I see people want to spend a lot of time with you, and they don't just want to spend time at work. They want to spend a meal time, overseas on business trips. People want that environment. They want access to you. So I think the access is one. I think don't go to work and lock yourself in a room is the other. And also, I now probably am more conscious of the working environment and working from home. I probably work from home less than I used to, because when you work from home, you're not with people. So it's interesting, you talked about the engineers all sort of chatting to each other on remote social networking tools. I think that's great for some people, but most people actually want proximity to people, particularly to leaders. That's how they're going to learn. So it's forcing me to reevaluate how I operate as an individual. And I don't think it's just millennials. I think millennials have set the bar, and I think everybody else is beginning to follow. I think it's the working environment rather than just the millennial thing.
We're focusing the conversation a lot on differentiating millennials and looking at those differences, those things that make them unique. And I'm interested in the common threads that link the young people that you hire to the others in your organization, because maybe it's just me, but I think there's more similarities between the people in our organization that are 50 and 23 than there are differences. And when we're looking at onboarding and bringing in new people to our organization, I think that finding those similarities and that common ground and weaving that fabric is critical. So could you speak to some of the similarities that you see to these young people and the more mature folks?
Yeah, I'll kick that off. I think for me the biggest one is this whole concept of purpose. It's extraordinary to me how everybody at all ages is drawn to that. And for a lot of the older people, it's probably more about making a difference and leaving a legacy. And for the younger people, it's about making a difference and using this incredible enthusiasm and energy they still have that perhaps some of the older people don't. So that's absolutely consistent across the piece, and that's something which brings everybody together. That's probably the biggest thing that I see.
For me, it's culture. I think you hire for culture, right? You hire for the cultural fit, for the type of people that you sort of go, I can see you being in this organization and succeeding in this communication. But so I think the skill is always passion. For us, we tend to hire for passion, and then skill comes next. We can teach skill because really, don't tell anybody, but communication is not brain surgery, right? So I mean, it is really a teachable skill unless you are in highly specialized roles like the engineers or the UX guys, right? So finding somebody that you see will have the values to carry the organization forward in time and has the potential to actually grow into a decent role, I think that's really it. And for me, it's quite simple. We have very you know, David Ogilvy was the biggest self-promoter on the planet, so he wrote many books on what he wanted the organization to feel like, and we follow those principles to the day. And that is quite a good guiding principle. So even though we are quite loose and not very structured in terms of proper functional HR, if you go into any Ogilvy office anywhere in the whole of the region, it feels the same. You will walk into it and go, yep, Ogilvy people. And I can look at somebody and go, very smart, really good, won't fit. And that fit is really the key. So I agree, I don't think that the millennials are really that amazingly different. I think they are just like the teenagers of the working world, right? All teenagers are exactly the same. They're hard work, you have to guide them a bit more, they're more demanding and they're more outspoken. And I think they ask for the things that we all sort of go, damn it, yes, that's what I want. You know, I just didn't have the guts to say it at the time, but they do say it at the time, which is not a bad thing. So I don't really think that that's such a big deal. I think for me, what I see for our type of industry, and certainly for millennials, that helps is context. Lots of context. They want to know why they have to do stuff. What is my role in the success of this company? And do you know what it is? And can you tell me what it is? And do you have a plan of how I'm going to get there? So there's certainly an expectation that you're going to help me achieve this. And I don't think that's any different for any of the generations. So I think I agree, I think the millennial thing is sort of a manufactured thing. We've been complaining about young people for as long as the world's existed, right? Including Plato, you know, sort of saying, you know, people don't expect their elders. So I really don't think that has changed. I think, though, what is important is to select those people that you think, will they carry the values, the culture of this organization forward? That's about it.
I have one question from the left-hand side of the room.
Yeah, I'll start off with this slide. My name's Corinne Williams, I work at Standard Chartered Bank. You've spoken a lot about leadership and inspiring leadership and all that stuff being important. I'd be interested to know what that means in the context of each organisation and what's the work you do with your leaders to help them develop that capability?
So, I mean, it's
in Unilever, so every single senior leader, it goes back to purpose, to be honest. Every single leader has to attend what we call a Unilever Leadership Development Program, a generic title for what's basically a whole week of sitting in 4 acres, which is our leadership training center, and taking a whole week off not to talk about business whatsoever. And it's really just talking about purpose and what they're all about as human beings. Because the theory behind that thought is that if you know what you're about as a person, then you can bring that passion to life at work and kind of steer your work alongside that. And yeah, so we actually give them free time not to do their normal work, and we actually just give them a lot of reflection time. I mean, I can talk about, obviously at the end of the day, we do have what we call a 70-20-10 development model. So 70% experiences and you just give them a career path. 20% is everyone who's high potential or anyone who's senior does have a mentor or a coach. And 10% is putting them through training courses, and we are indeed also the university for leaders in the FMCG industry. So quite a lot of senior leaders in other organizations probably came from Unilever. So we've got that 70-20-10 model down pat. But I think the latest thing we're doing with all our leaders, with no exception, is this whole course around finding their purpose and discovering that. And some people resign because they discover that their purpose has nothing to do with what they're doing, but that's okay. That's okay, right? At the end of the day, it's really about bringing the best in every single individual, and if they can't be their best in the organization, I don't really want them there anyway. So that's what we do.
We're actually very blessed because both Roger and Rajesh, which is the other co-founders, they're very people-oriented. You know, they think that people are the best asset, and they have actually hired every single member of the leadership team through a very rigorous process that, you know, they have maybe, it's actually like a case study, and they invite them, and everybody in the leadership team interviews them and has their views, and, you know, as Sue was saying, we hire for fit, you know, also with skills, but, you know, if you have the skills but you don't have the fit or the cultural values, you know, you can't work for Redmark. So you need to have the passion, because even at a senior position, you know, sometimes the compensation is not as good as what you would have before, but it's about getting them to understand what's behind the business, how to build the business, because we're basically building, it's building blocks, right? We don't have a lot of processes, we don't have a lot of structures. So even if you've been, you know, guiding a region of maybe 150,000 people, you know, when you come from Redmark, you know, you're used to a lot of processes that you already have. But the reality is that we don't have that. We just have a vision, and we have a lot of potential, and we have good people. But there's a lot of work to be done, and the challenges are very different. So they personally have sat down with all these people and made sure that they are the best fit for that.
One of the things that we do is a new leaders development program, which is for people who just start to manage their own teams. And that's sort of the first bit of conscious leadership, where you actually have to examine what does it mean to be a leader, and how. And it's we do it over a period of about 3 months, where we get the same group together over and over and over, and so they build on what they've learned in the first module into the next module into the next. The only type of training that our people really respond to is very experiential learning. So we build in a lot of technique into that to make it stick. And because we are multiple units, what we find is, and it's important for us that we have collaboration across the company. So when that group keeps coming together, it becomes a really tight-knit group, and it then has the function of holding each other in place in the agency, so that there's less attrition and there's natural collaboration. So rather than sort of not working with another unit, I pick up the phone to my mate and sort of say, hey, help. So we find that quite a useful version. And then there's a senior leadership development, which is sort of for the heads of offices, that they go on a much more expanded version of it. So yes, quite formal leadership training for agency.
Yeah, I think the if I take kind of the training courses to one side, practical stuff that people expect from us, the thing that probably took me the longest to work out myself was around delivering tough messages and being very transparent. So when I first became a partner and I had a team and I was trying to bring people through, I ended up trying to bring people through that probably weren't ever going to come through. And so I ended up more and more filling the gap for them and doing stuff for them. And when I stood back, I realised that other people either think you're A, stupid, B, you're showing favouritism, or C, you can't actually see the person's never going to come through. So kind of getting to the point where you can actually be quite clear, quite quickly, and quite directly with people in the team, because everybody sees it. Everybody sees how you behave, what you do, how you're responding to different people, and they judge you by what you do, and you go up and down in people's estimation based on your ability to make that call. I think the one thing that I came out of a leadership coaching course with, which scared me, was the coach said, he came in and he talked about firm, talked about leadership and leadership style, and he said, you can never have a bad day as a leader. And we all sat there and kind of laughed a bit. He said, no, you can never have a bad day. You have to go to work every day, and you can never have a bad day. If you can have a bad day, don't go to work. But you turn up at work and you have to be on form, you have to be positive, you have to be glass half full, you have to be inspiring people every day. And that's quite a challenge. That's kind of quite a tough ask. And they said, well, look at it the other way around, is that if you go to work and you're having a bad day and you vent and so on, people remember the bad days much more than they remember the rest of the days. You then took it one step further and you said, every single one of your colleagues and your fellow employees in the organisation is somewhere right now, all around the world, having an interaction with a customer. And they're either building your brand, they're maintaining your brand, or they're devaluing your brand. So if you think about it in that perspective, you want to do absolutely everything you can to always make sure they're at least maintaining or building your brand, not devaluing your brand. And you turning up and having a bad day is not a good start. So if I had to take something away, a little more personal, it would be just that expectation that you can never have a bad day.